Ekumarierieu ne duma. Ekumarierieu ne duma nuzomo. Ugogo meyeu ne duma o. Ugogo meyeu ne duma nuzomo. Iwaga mwedo baruselu o. Aga mwedo baruselu o. Etamie dana miuselu. Etamie dana miuselu. Yes, once again, ladies and gentlemen, this is J.R. Sydney for the Sydney Table Talk Show, the Stts. This evening, before I start my terms of discussion, I want to appeal to His Excellency Governor Godwin Enogase Obaseki, the Executive Governor of Edo State, to please take an in-depth look into the pre-colonial periods of Edo South, the colonial periods of Edo South, and the post-colonial periods of Edo South. These will go a long way in enriching the Emowa Museum that he is planning to set up. Your Excellency, the setting up of a state museum is a welcome idea. It will lead to the generation of revenues, and it will lead to job creation. But sir, it is important that you look into these periods. I think looking into this period would not actually cost a lot of money. All Your Excellency needs to do is to request the traditional rulers in Edo South, in fact, the entire Edo State, to present an article of memorandum. Set up a committee that will look into this article of memorandum so that the people will know when these titles were instituted. Because Your Excellency, I can tell you something I will show something later because from the Constitution of the Benin Traditional Council in 1977, we had less than 26, 27 Enigies in Edo South. But today, what I'm hearing is that we're having 96. But my request is not to botch the 96 Enigies. My request is at least for the people to know their history. Because their biographies or their articles of memorandums would help us know where we are coming from and where we are going, Your Excellency. In a nutshell, the article of memorandum will help to enrich a Moa museum, Your Excellency. God bless you. And after that, ladies and gentlemen, once again, now we're going to be talking this evening once more about Aipbe. And before the Aipbe starts its programs and projects, I would like to show to you people a video or an interview that was conducted at the palace of the Enogi of Ukiri, Godwin Aipbe Osanyade. This video will show to you or will tell you the reasons why Aipbe is insisting that the only solution to the problems that we are now envisaging from the Oba of Benin and his cohorts is go to the court. The state cannot resolve these problems alone. So I will want you people to hear this video, please. Okay?
Where was it from? Who are the members? What is their motive? What is their platform? How many members are they? Because this very time, I prepared 300 plots of land, 100 by 100. I give to them, they made a share for the village. I tell them, say, when I want share land for this, for village, if you say now, so mama, you won't give. You give some men, you will drive the women. I say, a portion like this for women, a portion like this for the Yoga Nigiri, and a portion like this for Ojon.
So, sir, this land, you share and give them, let them do it.
I share and give them for their own because I know say the thing wey their wahala even from the time when they talk for media say na me dey share land say land no dey they just say.
You see, my brothers and sisters, what I wanted you people to hear was the issue of how he shared 300 plus of lands for the villagers. The question here is, does Aipbe the Enogi has the authority to share lands for the people? Because we have seen the land use decree. The land use decree says that the land is regulated on the state by the state government. That is what we read. But here Aipbe is telling us that vividly that he is in charge of the land. He decides what happens to the land. Now, after this, I will play another part of this video for you. It's important because here we are going to listen to one of his boys who was talking, and I want you to please open your ears. It's important, you know.
Intervene into the matter because these people were the diaspora, so where they call themselves diasporans. Now then they ferment the trouble from over there through the so-called Philippe Owoya. In they carry one man where they call Samuel Omoefe Ugiagbe, follow body. Then Julie, a younger sister, where they do human trafficking. As Omonoba Nedo pronounce say he no want that kind of thing for Edo land. He can't change to land sales. He go sell land for people over there to come give them for Ugiri land. So we don't want him. My elder cousin brother, Sunday Gebo of the blessed memory, and myself, particularly and some others, we kick against that idea. It was in my own compound that Igebo was fired by his own younger brother, Uji Igebo, around 8:22. Around 8:22 in my presence. Not be say they tell me, me did there. Now this chair I sit down that very day, now they fire so. Before they fire this chair, me don't escape. Now my chair where I sit, I gave us sat beside me. I think get me now. So the man where we Philip, who they carry follow body say make he can become audion way so that two of them can join their hands together, make them fight Enogi. Not be even be number one now.
If you mention the names of number one,
I will tell you, madam, the land where we propose, the proposed site of Enogi, where we want to go build for Enogi. Now 40 plots. Oh, I sell them.
Okay. Now, you see, my followers, my brothers and my sisters, what I wanted you people to hear from this section of the video is that this man here said they are proposing, or they were proposing to develop 40 plots of land for the Enogi. Look, this is an absolute absurdity. They are developing 40 lands for Enogi. Then how many lands will be built for the Oba of Benin if you are building 40 lands for the Enogi? This is the major reason why the Aipbe is saying we must put a stop to all this nonsense. These are nonsense. These are nonsense. When I was growing up in Benin, these Enigies, these dukes, they were workers. Those who didn't go to school among them, some were security guards, some were trailer drivers, some were driving timber lorries, some were in the military, some were teachers, some were headmasters. They worked for their living. They were not selling the lands because the lands never belonged to them. The land sales of the Inigis or the Enugis started in the days of Erediawa. Erediawa was the one who gave them the authority to start selling lands. So you have heard from the horse's mouth. He said they were developing 40 plots of land for the Enugi. And the Enugi himself said he gave 300 plots of lands to the villagers to share amongst themselves. But where does he derive this authority? It's what Aipbe is after. Because this is robbing Peter to pay Paul. Because in the historical or the customary laws of Edo's house, lands were owned by those who farmed on them some centuries ago. These villages, they were founders of villages, and these founders of villages were the farmers, those who farmed centuries ago in these territories. So how come today, when the Nigerian law says that the power of land is vested on the state government, one bloody Enugi is now saying that the power of land is vested on him from the orders of the Oba of Benin. Aipbe is not going to condole this nonsense. At all, we are not going to condole this nonsense. Now, having said that, I want to equally read to you from the story of a young man who was a sword bearer in the Oba's palace. What happened to that young man? Because it is important, because we are not just after the we are not just after the Oba of Benin. That is the truth. We are not after him, but we are talking about bringing discipline to the society, because his actions, they are nothing but acts of criminality, And when we say that the Oba of Benin violates human rights in Nigeria, we mean it. We are not joking. Let me read from Sahara Reporters, the case of a young man who was a sword bearer to the Oba of Benin. It's a pathetic story. It's a pathetic story because now listen, exclusive Oba of Benin in modern slavery scandal. Uses influence to detain palace aide who served him from age 15 in prison for months. Denies him bail over allegation of stealing. Okay. The Oba of Benin in Edo State, Oba Eware II, is currently immersed in modern-day slavery scandal and an alleged violation of human rights of one of his palace aides, Nessin Ogogo, a 20-year-old who was detained by the police for months and remanded in prison over an allegation of stealing. Sahara Reporters learned that Ogogo, who joined the palace in 2016 as a 15-year-old boy, was also denied bail by the police who were reportedly acting on palace instructions. Sahara Reporters gathered that the palace detained Ogogo and another palace aide, identified only as Bright, from May to August 2021, when they were taken to court, and the two had been in prison ever since. So everyone is scared of the big name, and the family of this boy is really helpless now. He was detained since May 31, 2021. The strange part is that they even denied his bail even when it was a case of someone being accused of stealing, a source said. It may also interest you to know that these people are doing everything possible to sweep this issue under the carpet so people don't know about it. And they constantly give the impression that Nessie must serve some time for his outrageous allegations. Some time ago, Nelson tried to run away from the palace because of the maltreatment and hardship he had endured. You should also know that his poor parents, who are farmers, have not been spared by this cruel monarch, as their few hard-earned landed properties have been seized and they are constantly at risk. They have done all they can to beg and are still begging and saying he, Oba of Benin, should have their properties in exchange for their son's freedom, but to no avail. In my opinion, this is a pure case of modern slavery and this should not be tolerated. They are just using this influence to keep the poor guy in prison. He was supposed to have been granted bail, but they denied the bail. The State Council opposed it and they are all trying to please the king. Sahara reporters learned that Ogogo and the other were accused of stealing 200 million naira cash from the palace. He was charged with stealing and conspiracy. Speaking with Sahara reporters, a top source revealed that the allegation of stealing 200 million naira cash from the palace was both frivolous and inhuman. How is it humanly possible for a 20-year-old boy to steal the sum of 200 million naira in cash from the palace with all the security and pageantry without being noticed and traced? Even a bullion van will hardly hold that much money. It may also interest you to know that these people are doing everything possible to sweep this issue under the carpet. Initially, he, Oba of Benin, said it was $20,000. Then he said 10 million naira. When he saw that he wasn't getting as much solidarity, he started increasing it until it's now currently 200 million naira, which he is accusing Nessie of stealing. The State Council gave some flimsy excuses that Nelson will run off if granted bail, while his lawyer sat there and said nothing. Seemingly, they have all been bought over. His lawyer later suggested that we should go for an appeal for the bail and charge an outrageous sum of 1 million naira, he said. Sahara reporters learned that the palace aide, now 20 years old, turned 21 this year, wrote some notes while in remand detailing how his ordeal at the Oba of Benin's palace started. He's been remanded in Oko Correctional Center in Benin City. In the notes written by the accused while in prison and obtained by Sahara reporters on Friday, Nelson said, "Before reading this book, things you need to know. 1. I have been serving the king Oba Ewari II for 5 years plus. I have been serving without off day, break, or relaxation time. I work 365 days or 366 days a year. I am not on any payroll. I don't receive any salary. My family don't get any benefit or compensation. They haven't received anything from the palace. My education got tampered with since I got to the palace. Because the school is not functioning well and no proper equipment or lab, I was overlabored. I don't have fixed working hours. Sometimes I do work from morning 6 a.m. till midnight 12 a.m. Sometimes till dawn. I don't have time for myself because I was occupied. I was being maltreated. I have photo proof. I was always beaten and threatened every day. I was just waiting for the whole issue to die so I can leave because it was becoming more unbearable. I called my parents and I explained everything to them. I even told my friends. They all advised me to just bear that maybe everything will soon be over. It all started when an issue arose on May 15, 2021 about some missing cash in the king's Ewari's inner chamber. I happened to be one of the close aides to him, so one of my colleagues, Bright, was detained on that same day, May 15, for questioning. Meanwhile, I was still doing my daily routine without knowing how the whole matter was going. I was beaten and threatened to confess about my colleague, Bright, that I saw him taking the money, but I refused to do so because I never saw him taking the money. Truth be told, it wasn't very easy. I couldn't run because they would falsely accuse me. Though I kept on complaining to the person that brought me Roland, he kept telling me to keep calm and that I can run when everything is over. He told me everyone will conclude I am the one who took the money if I run. On May 31st, Roland told me that I was going to the State Criminal Investigation Department to write a statement that Bright mentioned my name in his statement. And I was really confused because I don't even know what he was talking about. So I walked up to his car and entered there. I heard a lot of rumors that police can torture you and you will start confessing what you didn't do. I was really scared. Then I asked Roland if I could go home from the police station because all I wanted in my life was freedom. So I told Roland I was going to confess that I saw Bright and Igwe coming out from the inner chamber with brown envelope, but I don't know what was inside. That they gave me some cash later that day, not to tell anyone I saw them. The story was made up. No incident like that ever occurred. I wanted to get myself involved so I will be chased from the palace, and I see that as the only way to freedom. So Roland drove me to the state CID with two bouncers who they were going to detain too. We met the commander anti-cultist unit and I wrote my statement in his office. I was surprised that after writing the statement, Roland left me there and I was detained on May 31st, 2021. At first, I thought Roland was going to inform the king so that I would be sent home as we both agreed, but I never heard from him for more than a week. I waited for weeks, but he never showed up, but kept giving excuses when called. I was detained for 2 months, a week, and a day, May 31st to August 8, 2021. My parents never visited or called to check up on me. It was my girlfriend that kept bringing food to me. It wasn't really easy though. Note that my parents' property, a house on 100 feet by 100, and extra land were seized by the palace even before investigations started. The properties have not been returned yet. So after being detained again on October 25th, 2021, we were charged to court. We were taken to High Court for stealing case. We were remanded in Oko prison on October 26, 2021 as awaiting trial persons. So on a fateful day, we were called for a visit by some prison warders that there were some visitors from the palace. On getting there, we saw Dennis Osaratin, Onyaninye, and one other palace functionary who I assumed the palace sent to check to see if we were really suffering. Tomorrow is Christmas and I'm still in prison. Worst Christmas ever, not for me. Though because I always celebrate it without going out or having fun, but it's actually the worst Christmas for my family. How are they going to celebrate Christmas knowing their son brother is in prison? Don't really know how they feel now, but I still give thanks to God. Frank Irabor, Secretary of Benin National Council, told Sahara reporters that the monarch is too big to respond to such allegations, especially as the matter is in court. I don't understand the case you are talking about. The case is in court. Do you want Omonoba Nedo to react to that? If someone is detained, even for 1 year, that is at the discretion of the judge or the agency handling the case. They will want to continue to remand the person maybe to conclude their investigation. They should not drag Omonoba into it at all. He's too big for that. So there is no need to say the palace or the secretary should react. Let the court handle it. Please, he's too big for that, Irabo. You see, my dear followers, if you all listen to this note written by this young man, this is a human being, you know. AY has children, you know. Let me just go remind every one of you that the late Alafin of Oyo, Lamidi, I was reading a particular article on a newspaper. You know what one of his aides told me? He said he was going to miss his best friend, even if he was his boss. That they eat on the same plate. Lamidi will not eat without him. Whenever they served their laughing for you, he will be sitting there eating with him. And every child in that palace were all going to school just the same way the children of Lamidi goes to school. But you see, this young man, very young boy, at the age of 15, look at his cries. He's even telling you that the school they have in the palace there, the school does not function. He has a school in the palace that does not function. But his children, they go to the best school in the city. You see, my brothers, I am still going to be pleading. You see, the AIPBE is not doing a job for you, for me, but for every one of us. There is need for us to pursue this court reliefs to a logical conclusion. Yes, Obaseki is doing something about it. Obaseki very soon will come to the public and carry out some revolutionary changes in the traditional institution in Edo South. But that is not enough, because there is a lot of damages that have been done in Edo South, and some of these damages, we need to repair them. The only way we can repair them is through these court reliefs, because with these true court reliefs, the people will now know where they stand, because the people have been so brainwashed, they have been so indoctrinated that just imagine that in Benin, somebody will be telling you that he's a slave. Look, it's terrible. It's terrible. Somebody will be telling you that he's a slave. Of course, the Oba of Benin has never once come out to say that he has slaves. But the way these people have been brainwashed, intimidated, they are the ones who now says they are slaves. If we go to the slave periods, slaves never saw themselves as slaves. The slaves saw themselves as equals. They fought their masters. But in the modern world in Benin City, people who are not slaves are not saying they are slaves. It tells you that something is wrong somewhere. Something is wrong somewhere. We are not going to play with the Aipbe is not going to take it so low. We will continue to appeal because we need funds. We need funds because our people have been completely brainwashed. There is no way that those who are followers of the Oba of Benin will ever understand the true story of the Oba of Benin, because when you look at the oaths that they perform on these people, it's very simple. It's a mafia way of dealing. The oath says you should never sit whenever they are talking against the Oba of Benin. That is, if I am talking about the Oba of Benin and it is against him, or I'm criticizing him, put it that way, all you need to do is just spit, stand up and go away. So you don't have the opportunity to even hear another version of his stories. Look, in Benin, just go to Benin City, raise up the Oba's issue in a certain circle. People will just stand up and begin to disperse. So they have no accurate history about this man, because this man has been able to so intimidate them. All right? Now, we have another issue that we are looking up to. We think that within the court reliefs that we are seeking, we are equally going to include it. We are going to ask the court we are going to ask the court to move the state or the State House of Assembly to make a law bounding the use of ring road as a place for coming to place curse on people. Just gather some nuisance. They wear red and red, green and green, black and black, with some bolts and nuts. They come to ring road and they start to place curse on people. This should not happen again. It is lowering the integrity of the people of that very particular part of the world. Anybody who sees that will always say, these people in Benin, they don't even open eye. Which kind of nonsense be this? No. If the Oba of Benin so feels that he wants to place curse on anybody, let him do that within his palace. Not in a public place like Ring Road. We are equally going to include these as part of the relief we are seeking. We want a society where democracy flows. They say no man is an island and no man is perfect. But what we in AIPBE we are going for is to sanitize our society. Stop rogues, these enugis, from selling people's land, people's property. Those that have been sold the royalties accruing from those properties should come to those who live and who are indigenous to that land because they are there. But today, they are poor. This is what Aipbe stands for. Example, the Oba of Benin, the Irediawa, he sold a lot of land in Owo, around Owo, a lot of villages in that sector, to Presco. Presco paid the Oba of Benin, and Presco is still paying royalties to the Oba of Benin. No, the Aipbe wants to put a stop to this. We want the royalties to go to the people of Owo because that is the labor of their forefathers. And another topic we are still going to include in our case is the issue of arbitrarily changing the names of villages, because when you are changing the name of villages, you are destroying the historical relevance of that village. It's nonsensical today to hear Oba acting, Oba this, Oba that. Every village is turning to Oba. How many villages do they call Oba in Ife? Or the Oni? How many villages do they call Oba in Lagos? How can you just come in the 21st century and begin to change the name of villages to suit your own interest? To tell you how these issues, as they are telling on the people, because the people don't even realize that they are being fooled by this man and his family. I'll give you a typical example. Say, I face Oba, you know what that means in Benin? That nobody can be richer than the Oba. I go Oba singing, nobody can drag with the Oba. Oba Nyagbon, the Oba owns your life. Oba Nyato, the Oba owns the land. Everything is Oba, 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 Oba. Well, if by 1897, the Oba of Benin could not defend this so-called Oba, we are now in the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So why must he now come to inconvenience us with this Oba? So you see, Aipbe is a new movement. And we stand. We are not going to go back. We will continue to fight, to raise funds, and we will continue to drag the man to the law court. And we are not going to give him any space. We are not going to give him any space at all. These issues must be resolved. We have the case of Ologbo, where I heard that whenever the oil companies, they give money, instead of giving money to the community, they give this money to the Enogi, who is the brother to the Oba of Benin. This man splits the money into three. He gives one part to the Oba of Benin. He takes a second part. The third part, he gives to his close allies in the village. And the community has nothing to show for it. If you go to Ologbo, they have nothing. Ologbo has 21 oil wells in Ologbo. That's what we have. 21 oil wells. So to say that the indigenous of Ologbo, they are suffering is an insult on our integrity, that these people are suffering. They are not supposed to suffer because they live in a land that is rich. We are not saying that these resources should be shared alone by the people of Ologbo. No. But the people of Ologbo should come first when we are talking of royalty, not Enogi. Enogi wasn't born there. Enogi is not from that territory. Ologbo was already there for hundreds and hundreds of years before the bloody Enogi was brought there in 1982 by Rediawa. But if you go to Ologbo today, the Enogi has succeeded in selling nothing less than 45 to 50% of the lands. And whenever they talk, they bring in talks. It is just recently, thanks to the action of His Excellency Governor Godwin Obaseki, that there's a little bit of relaxation in all the activities. Sometimes last year, sometimes in the first quarter of last year. These people were still very brutal. They were so powerful. We saw on the social media how they were pulling people's houses down. We're not talking about Ulegun. We're talking about what we saw, how all these niggas, they just confiscate people's land for no reason, saying that they are now the landlords. We are not in a feudal system. We are in a constitutional republic. It's called the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And Edo State is a federating unit. And there are laws. If the state, since the state cannot act on these laws, Aipbe wants to go to court, seeking court release, thereby compelling the state to act on these laws. Aipbe is not saying that new laws must be made to satisfy the interests of our people. Aipbe is saying that there are laws already, but these laws are not being implemented. So we want it implemented. This is what Aipbe stands for. You see, one other issue that I will bring to your notice. You see, by 1977, when the Benin Traditional Council was constituted, as a matter of fact, by 1977, the Ogiamie was the competent chieftaincy stool for Benin City. So in constituting the Benin Traditional Council, the Ogiamie was supposed to head that council. But the Oba of Benin, like I said, he went to school. The Ogiamie then didn't go to school, didn't know what was happening. The Oba of Benin, what he did, he set up the Benin Traditional Council, even without no legal backing, because if you look at the 1968 chieftaincy law, which made the Ogiamie the competent chieftaincy stool of Benin City, by 1977, that law was still there, because that law was re-amended in 1979. So 2 years before the law was amended, the Ogiamie was still the competent stool. So the Oba's forming or the constitution of Benin Traditional Council was completely illegal. Completely illegal by law. These are criminal acts. Because he surrounded himself with a lot of individuals, a very, very strong mafia network. I am going to tell you one other story that, that comes to my mind. We all remember that when Ogiamie Arisco was arrested in 2015, usually we all know when a state arrests you with criminal charges, the prosecution is done by the DPP, the Director of Public Prosecution. Now, what happened when Arisco was arrested and charged before a magistrate court? The magistrate was a female. I have forgotten her name. She was one of them. She belongs to their clique. They came up with frivolous bail conditions for Ogiamie Arisco. They said that Arisco must present 2 high chiefs from the Oba's palace, in the democratic system, that you must go to your enemy to come and guarantee your release. Oh, yeah, people make me laugh. These people are terrible. They are really criminals. So, they did not grant bail. When our lawyer saw the difficulty, the lawyer of the Ogiamie, Godwin Owaikena, then applied to the High Court for bail. On getting to the High Court not only applied for bail, the High Court now took over the case from the Magistrate Court, wanting to hear the case. They filed a motion that the High Court has no jurisdiction to hear the case. But in the ruling, the sitting judge told them that he had the jurisdiction to hear the case. And then he ruled and moved for a date of hearing of the substantive suit. What they did, they had to go to the Court of Appeal. They are so rich. Over the years, they made so much money. We heard the other time that Obaiwari had $64 million from the sales of people's lands. They went to the Court of Appeal. They bribed their way through. But what happened here? we remember in the letter of the Attorney General said, I and some senior colleagues, that they combated the Ogiamie. Good. And in that letter, he said that the cost of prosecution was borne by the state government. Good. But what actually happened, ladies and gentlemen? When the case now left the magistrate court for the Court of Appeal, when they suffered that defeat at the High Court, they now brought in 16 senior advocates of Nigeria. 16 senior advocates of Nigeria signed. Automatically, they now hijacked the prosecution from the DPP. They now became the prosecutors. In that process, the state was now spending so much money in paying these senior advocates of Nigeria to prosecute the Ogiamie. You see the illegality, you see how smart they are. Instead of allowing the state through the DPP to prosecute the Ogiamie, what they did was they now hijacked the case from the DPP. It was now their senior advocates who were now prosecuting the Ogiamie. In so doing, the state was now bleeding. They were now bleeding the state of huge resources. I can tell you from the information I got. Charles Edosoma, Barrister Lege, including the Attorney General, and who was then the Solicitor General, then including this Ida Hagmo, what they got from the state to prosecute the Ogiamie at the Court of Appeal, they made so much money from the state. What I want you people to understand here is this breach of the rule of law. Not allowing the DPP to prosecute a criminal case. They now began to prosecute by themselves. They made so much money. You know, they were using it. It became business for them. Even at the Supreme Court, they now took over the case. But Ogiamie never had any problems with the Oba of Benin. The case was between the Edo state government. The Oba of Benin was only a party. The case was between the Edo state government and the Ogiamie royal dynasty. That was all. But they took over the case and they started making money out of it. This is to tell you how dangerous they are. Recently, I was told when the Swiss government invited some people from Nigeria to discuss on the returns of the artifacts, you know. Charles Edosoma, Barrister Edosoma was there. Prince Agatise was there. The DG of the National Commission for Museum and Monuments was there. And I think Oronsaye too was there. While in Switzerland, an argument arose. The authorities, the Swiss people, threw a question. To whom should the artifacts be returned? The DG stood up and said, the artifacts should be returned to the owner, Nigeria. And Edosoma stood up in such a very, very stupid manner and was telling the DG that the Oba of Benin sent you here. Was it not the Oba of Benin that sent you here? How can the Oba of Benin send a federal official? But anyway, the DG himself lived up to expectation. After allowing Charles Edosoma to exhaust his stupidity, the DG stood up and said he was representing the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Muhammadu Buhari, and that he was sent there by the President, not the Oba of Benin. When I heard this statement, I was very happy that at least they have equally gone to Switzerland to show how stupid they are. Just the same way Chief Aipbe was saying that the state should have consulted the Oba's palace before entering a nolle prosequi in the case of the Ogiamie. It is not written in law The state is the highest authority. The state has the authority to issue a nolle prosequi. The state does not need to consult the Oba of Benin, does not need to consult the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. The state takes a decision. What the state can do is to look at the implications with its Attorney General. This is exactly what the law says. But even in that case, Sam Aipbe, that moron, was saying that, the palace is not happy because the state government should have sought the consultation of the Oba's palace. They just forgot the role of the traditional institution, its adversary. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, for today, I think I've given some other informations. Like I want to say again, Your Excellency, the Executive Governor of Edo State, please, the idea of Emoa is a beautiful one, but we can enrich Emoa with the history of our people. To do this, Your Excellency, ask the traditional rulers to present the articles of memorandums of biography or their history, whichever way they want to define it. When these things are put together by a special committee, a volume can be built so that when tourists comes, Emoa, they will not just only have to look at artifacts, woods, bronze, cast. They should equally read a lot of it, but we have a very rich cultural history. The people of Yekorion have a very distinct cultural history different from the people from Ovia. It is only through this article of memorandums that we can put all these facts together. There are a lot of differences. And these differences will enrich our museum. I'm not talking about Edo South alone. I'm talking about both Edo Central and Edo North. These traditional rulers should be asked to put the articles of memorandums together. A special committee will look at this article of memorandum and then build volumes. They can be broken down into little volumes that people will read whenever they visit Emoa Museum. On this note, ladies and gentlemen, once again, J.R. Sydney would want to say thank you for following. I want to seek again your attention. Like I said, the organization or the Association of the Indigenous People of Benin in Europe, we need your funding. We need your funding. It's not important how small, how big, but we need your funding. We could pull all together and then we could pay our lawyers in these cases. We have done it before. We have one case that is going, and we are sure that in the next 6 months, we should have our rulings. We're filing 2 or 3 other cases next month in Benin for jurisdiction purposes. We need your help. Like we said, we are not going to reveal the identity of those who are financially helping when they don't want it revealed. If you want it revealed, we will equally make it public. But if you don't want it revealed, we will not make it public. And please, whenever you send us funds, please do not hesitate. Get a copy of the receipt of the transfer. Send it on WhatsApp to us. Because we are filing it. We want to know people who found us, not because we want to reveal their identity to the public, but we want to know them because if in the future somebody comes and say, oh, you know, I participated when we were doing this, we look at our file, we look at our records, and we're able to say, okay, this man was with us. Even when you are not with us, we are not going to say you are not part of the struggle because there are people who are going to give us some money. And there are people too who are going to what? Physical presence. All right? So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to plead with you again. For those of you on PayPal, please send your donations through mrcultureman@gmail.com. MRCULTUREMAN for those with PayPal. Now with RIA, Western Union, MoneyGram, you can send your transfers to the president of the association, Johnny Raphael Sidney, JOHNNY RAPHAEL SIDNEY. This is for those of you with Western Union, MoneyGram, and RIA. Again, for all inquiries, do not hesitate to send us your messages on WhatsApp +39 351 275 9651. Send all your inquiries, or alternatively, you can write to us on aipbeUrope@gmail.com. Again, aipbeUrope@gmail.com. Thank you once more. This is J. Arrow Sydney for the Sydney Table Talk Show and the president of the Association of the Indigenous People of Nigeria and Europe. May God bless you all as you are giving to us. May God continue to bless you and your generations and generations to come. Love you.